Welcome guys to another deck concept. This time we're looking at Speedroid Shaddolls. So we've used Speedroids and Shaddolls in a lot of decks, but we've never used them together, and it works out quite nicely. So let's get right into it. For the Speedroid monsters that we'll be using, we will be using Speedroid Terratop, Tuktumborg, Triad Dice, Duke, Red-Eyed Dice, Chambara, Kandema, and Speed Recovery to bring back our Speedroid monsters. For the Shaddolls, we have Falco, Hedgehog, Dragon, Squamata, Beast, and the fusion monsters we have el-Shaddoll Winda, el-Shaddoll Windigo because we're using a lot of wind here for the Speedroids, el-Shaddoll Shiganaga because we're running Glow Bulb, and el-Shaddoll Grista because we're not running any fire monsters, but hey, we can actually make it without a fire monster in the main deck. For the Shaddoll spells and traps, we have Shaddoll Fusion. If your opponent controls a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, oh boy, they're in trouble because we get to use fusion materials in our deck, which is really nice because we get the mill bonuses as well as we get a free monster. el-Shaddoll Fusion, this card's actually at 1 on the ban list because it's that powerful. Quick play spell card, which means you get to use it during your battle phase or anytime during your turn to dodge a bullet. Even mess up your opponent during your opponent's turn because you can activate during your opponent's turn, right? Nephe-shaddoll Fusion, it's an equip card. You can only equip it to a Shaddoll monster, and then you get to change the Shaddoll monster's attribute to any other attribute you want. So remember, el-Shaddoll Grista was a fire monster, so with this equip card you can change its attribute to fire and then use the equipped monster as fusion material for a Shaddoll fusion monster, using monsters from your hand or side of the field with the equipped monster. So that's how you would make like el-Shaddoll Grista or el-Shaddoll Shiganaga if you didn't have the glow up in your deck or hand. Shaddoll Core, a continuous trap card, which is actually a monster when it's activated, and it can substitute as any attribute for a Shaddoll fusion monster, which means it can act as like a fire or an earth monster, even a Shaddoll monsters as well, so that's really good because we don't have any fire monsters in this deck again, so el-Shaddoll Grista is possible with Shaddoll Core, as well as Shiganaga, only that one glow up, so Shaddoll Core really helps, as well as if it's sent to graveyard by a card effect, you can add any other Shaddoll spell trap card from your graveyard back to your hand, except for itself, but you know, all the Shaddoll fusion monsters, when they're sent to graveyard, they can just add back Shaddoll Core, so there's a lot of recycle power here. Other cards include Jewels of Valiant because we need to mill a lot of things in this deck. 80 Changer to flip our Shaddoll monsters face up to activate their flip effects faster. Glow Bulb because it's a great card, it can special summon itself from the graveyard as well as an el-Shaddoll Shiganaga target in our main deck or hand. Synchro Fusionist, combining the powers of Synchro and Fusion in one monster, as well as a Dark Spellcaster type monster, which is basically every single Shaddoll monster, so it's really nice. It can help you search out the Shaddoll Fusion cards, but when it's sent to the graveyard as Synchro material. We got Dark Magic Veil, pay 1000 life points, special summon a Dark Spellcaster type monster from your hand or graveyard. It can bring back Synchro Fusionist, as well as the entire Shaddoll archetype in the main deck, as well as Shaddoll Winda, because they're all Dark Spellcaster type monsters, except for the Zephyra Shaddoll monster, which is actually rock in the main deck. So that's kind of strange. Dark Smorg, level 7. It seemed only appropriate to actually have this card in here because we're running a Dark and a Wind deck at the same time. So you can banish a Speedroid and a Shaddoll monster, bam, Dark Smorg. And Dark Smorg prevents your opponent from setting any cards at all, so that's really nice. And it can even special summon itself from the graveyard just by sending a Wind and Dark monster from your hand to the graveyard. Time for some combos. So we have a 2-card combo here. We have Speedroid Terratop, special summon himself to search out a Tuktumborg. And then since you control a Wind monster, which is Terratop, you can special summon Tuktumborg from your hand. Normal summon Synchro Fusionist will activate Tuktumborg's effect, tributing itself to summon forth a Speedroid Red-Eyed Dice from our deck. So now we can only summon Wind monsters for the rest of the turn, but that's okay. We'll use level 1, level 3, and level 2 monsters here. So Synchro and up at level 6. Stars Charge Warrior. So we'll activate the Fusionist and the Stars Charge Warrior effect. For Fusionist, we'll search out any Shaddoll Fusion card from our deck to our hand. And Stars Charge Warrior will allow us to draw 1 additional card. So that's basically 2 cards to get 2 cards. So that's a net worth it, right? And then if we have Jewels of the Valiant, we could do a different play. So we could, instead of going for Stars Charge Warrior, we could go High Speedroid Kandema instead. Kandema has an effect when it's on the field. You can just banish a Speedroid monster from your graveyard and burn your opponents for 500 life points. So you'll activate that effect, Usually you want to banish the Terratop, so you'll banish the Terratop, and then inflict 500 points of damage. You'll trigger the Jewels of Valiant because you just banished the monster from your graveyard. Then you can mill any other monster that's not wind attributed, which is basically the Shaddoll monsters. You can mill Glow Up Bulb, any Shaddoll monster, or AD Changer. So if you want to just draw a card, you can just mill Shaddoll Beast and you get to draw a card anyways. So that's pretty good. So more combos, we have High Speedroid Chambara, and usually you want to summon him after you banished a Speedroid Terratop because you want to actually add back the Terratop, because Terratop is pretty good for comeback plays, right? And Chambara, when it's sent to the graveyard, you get to add a banished Speedroid monster, so that's why usually you want to banish the Speedroid Terratop with the Kendama's effect. More combos, we have Jewels of the Valiant, being able to be triggered by a lot of things, such as, again, High Speedroid Kendama does this pretty well. Duke here can banish himself to spousal summon a Speedroid tuner monster from your hand or graveyard, except for Duke himself, so that's really good. And as well as Tri-Dye Dice, I think I mentioned this before in my Dolce Speedroid video. You can banish this during your opponent's turn, then just negate an attack. And you don't have to use this during damage step like Necro Gardener, so you can trigger the Jewels of effect if you wanted to. More combos, we got Shaddoll Fusion, Speed Recovery. So if you had these two cards in your hand and nothing else really useful, if your opponent does have an extra deck summoned monster, you can just Shaddoll Fusion to Wendigo, and then just send that Terratop, and then just Speed Recovery that Terratop, and then you can go off from there. Shaddoll Wendigo. So during your player's turn, you can target one monster you control. This turn, it cannot be destroyed battle with an opponent's special summon monster. So that effect is super mediocre because, you know, it doesn't protect against Regeki or Dark Hole or monster effect destruction or anything like that. And Wendigo can't protect against those things, but being level 6 and Wind, I forgive it because it's actually super useful in this deck. As a material anyways, Synchro or Exceed wise, or Fusion even. So we have Speedroid Red-Eyed Dice. So this card can adjust the level of a Speedroid monster other than itself on the field, which is really good because you can declare a level 6 and then your Speedroid monster becomes level 6, so you can Exceed summon using it as Exceed material with Wendigo. As well as you can use Kendama as Exceed material because it is also level 6 to Exceed summon into Beatrice, the Eternal Lady, one of the best Exceed monsters in the game. Having the ability to mill during either player's turn any card from our deck to graveyard is super high utility in this deck. So we can mill any Shaddoll monster and trigger their effect, but it's not even limited to monsters. We can even mill spell and trap cards, such as Shaddoll Fusion. By detaching Shaddoll Wendigo to activate Beatrice's effect to mill Shaddoll Fusion to the graveyard, we will then trigger Shaddoll Wendigo's effect to add back the Shaddoll Fusion that we just milled. So that's a really good utility interaction right there, right? As well as we got Shaddoll Core. If we milled Shaddoll Core by detaching the Shaddoll Wendigo, Wendigo will add the Shaddoll Core, and Shaddoll Core will add any other Shaddoll spell trap card from your graveyard back to your hand, such as the one that just fusion summoned the Shaddoll Wendigo. So that's a really good recycle play as well. And we can mill Speed Recovery. Preferably you want to mill this during your opponent's turn because you can't exactly activate the effect during the turn it was sent to the graveyard, but since Beatrice can activate during either player's turn, it's a really good utility wise to get back your Speedroid monsters. So this is what the Speedroid Shaddoll deck looks like. It's quite interesting because I've made it a long time ago, but I decided not to share it because I felt like something was missing. But finally I found it, Synchro Fusionist. How could I miss such a card, right? And as well as Dark Magic Veil being released later on thanks to the Dark Magician support, it really does help the deck out as well. So that's pretty interesting, how Synchro and Fusions can work together so nicely, as well as Wendigo being a bit more useful than I thought. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you guys later.
missing. Ow!
And action.